Thank you for joining me today for Session 5, How to Filter and Sort Properties, Spaces, and Clients, where we'll be talking about querying in REA, being able to limit down what you're currently looking at. So, for example, it can be used to search for all the properties in a certain city, in a certain size range, or both for that matter, all in a certain city in a certain size range. You can then bring up the owners of those properties, for example, or search for specific types of owners. So that all uses a function in REA called querying. And on each of the different tables here, you'll see a drop-down box that says query. By default, it says all records, meaning there's no query set. So right now I have 823 properties total in my database, and I want to use the querying functionality to limit down what I'm looking at so I can more target what I want to see. So for example, let's say that I have a buyer that's looking for a property in Van Nuys, California between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet. That will be what we're going to query on. And so first off, we want to search for all of our properties in Van Nuys, California. So here where this drop-down box is, it says query. Currently it says all records. If we drop that down, we can select query, and that's going to bring up the query window. The first option is field. So this is going to have all the fields in the table you're currently looking at. So because I am in properties, it's going to bring up all of the property fields here. So the one that I'm going to search on is city. I'll just drop down that box and choose city. Operator. This gives you an option of how to search. So the field is what to search, operator is how to search. Right now it's set to is, meaning it's going to search for an exact match. So if I type in Van Nuys, it'll search for all of them, all of the properties in my database that are Van Nuys. There's a few options here, and it's going to change a little bit depending on what field it is, but by default, city will have most of them. So is will search for all of them that are a specific city. Is not is able to filter out a specific city from your search. So I could say city is not Van Nuys and just search for all my properties that aren't in that city. Is empty would search for any records in my database that do not have a value in the field that I'm searching on. Or is not empty is the other side of that. Search for everything in the database that does have something in the value. Greater than and less than probably wouldn't ever be used for city, but you can use that for like square footage fields. Say I want to see everything less than 50,000 square feet or everything greater than 20,000 square feet, for example. Also greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, meaning it'll also include the one value that you select. You can also do starts with or doesn't start with, ends with, doesn't end with, so that searches either the beginning or end of a field. Contains is actually one of the more useful ones in the database, because it'll search anywhere within the field. So for fields where you're going to have like multiple filled-in values, you can use contains to search anywhere within the field. So like, for example, if you're searching for a specific construction type, you can use contains in case you have a field, in case you have a property that has multiple construction types. Like let's say the construction type is concrete and brick. Well, if it's concrete comma brick and you do a search with the operator is, it's only going to look for an exact match, and that means it's exactly what you're searching for, whereas contain searches anywhere within the field, gives you a little bit more leeway on that. And then you can also search for doesn't contain. Sounds like a little bit sketchy, but you can actually use that like if you're searching for names, for example. You could say, well, I know it like rhymes with Bobby, so I'm going to use sounds like. Or for like square footages, we'll use between. So for this one, we're just going to choose is. Here, we're going to type the value we want to search for. And you can search for multiple values as well by hitting add and adding the different values. So like, let's say I wanted all of them in Van Nuys and Canoga Park. I can search for all of them that have either one of those. Hit OK. And that's going to bring us up with 365 properties that are either in Van Nuys or in Canoga Park. Now, like I said, our buyer is looking for also a specific square footage range between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet in either one of those cities. So we want to filter even further than that and search within these properties for those that match that square footage range. So another way to query, if it's one of the regular fields down here under the property info section, you can right click and query, and that'll bring up that same query window, but it'll automatically fill in the field for you. So it automatically filled in building size, and like I said, I want to do building sizes between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet. Now, there's three options down here if you're searching while you already have a query up. So what that gives you an option of either replacing the current query, meaning I don't want to have the filter city is Van Nuys or Canoga Park anymore. You could drill down within current query, meaning within these 365 properties that are in Van Nuys or Canoga Park, I want to show all of them between 10 and 25,000 square feet. Whereas add to current query would say I want to see all properties either in Van Nuys or in Canoga Park, or any of them anywhere that are between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet. So drill down within current query is kind of, you can think of it as and, whereas add to current query you can think of as or. So it would say city is Van Nuys or Canoga Park, or the building size is between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet. Whereas this would be city is Van Nuys or Canoga Park, and the building size is between 10,000 and 25,000. So that's the one we'll use, and we'll hit OK. And that brought us from 365 properties in those cities to 106 that are in those cities between that square footage range. And you can keep using the query functionality to keep drilling down and drilling down and drilling down until you have focused on exactly what you're searching for. There's no limit to how many different fields you can do a query on. You can also query based on the groups, and groups is going to be our next webinar on Friday. It does end up tying in with the querying quite a bit, so that's definitely a good one to watch as well in addition to this. So we have our properties between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet. Now from here we could of course do a mailer to these 10,000 to 25,000 square foot properties, or we could also add the records to a group, whatever we want. When we have a query set, we're only working with those 106. So anything where we have an option of doing something to all of the records, it's usually all of the records in the current query. So it would only go to these 106 that we've targeted. Now, we could, of course, write a letter. When we do a mail merge, it'll give us an option of sending to everybody in the current query, so these 106 people. We can use a global replace to change a field across the board for all of these, and so on. We can also then do a search for all of the linked records. So, for example, if I wanted to view the owners of these 106 properties that match the criteria, I could just go here to look up, choose linked, and go to owners. And that'll bring up under contacts the 106 owners of those buildings. So you can use that lookup linked feature to go between the different databases, go from properties to owners. You can even use it to go from, say, time management to contacts. So you could search for all of the phone calls that you've had in the past X amount of time and bring up all the contacts that match those phone calls. So you can see everybody that you've recently contacted using this method. Now I'm going to go back to the property. Just go to Window and Properties, and you can actually save this query. So if this query, if it's a somewhat complicated query, it's a good idea to save the query if it's something you're going to use again. That way you don't have to go through each time and do every single little step. So what you can do is go up to Lookup and Edit Query, and that's going to bring up the Advanced Query window. Not really going to get into that too much. It's basically the same thing, but all in one line. It uses kind of a programming approach to it, however. But from this window, you have some options here where it says either Load or Save. We can hit Save to save this query. So I'm just going to save it as VNCP 10K to 25K. And I can hit OK and have that query saved. So that way, let's say I come in tomorrow and I'm looking at all my records and I need to bring up those properties again that I did the query on the day before. Or I can go here to Look Up and choose Load Query, and that's going to be an option there. I'll hit OK, and it automatically loads that query that we had saved. Now, you can use groups to kind of group things together like that, but one benefit of using a query like this, a saved query, is if, let's say, we add another property to our database. So I'm just going to add a new property real quick. Call it the new webinar property. And I'm just going to add it to Van Nuys, California here. And hit OK. And put the building size at 17,500. Well, we had 106 properties that matched that criteria. We added another property, so when we go to load that query the next time and hit OK, it will actually bring up any new properties that have been added since you created that query. Whereas if you add records to a group, those records are set in stone. You have to actually manually add each record that you want to the group. So that's one benefit of a saved query over a group, is if it's something that you can actually search on, you can search the fields, like the name of the building, the name of the street that it's on, or anything like that. You can save that query, and then as you add more records that match that criteria, each time you load that query, it'll come up. Now, just to quickly show from time management that you can do this as well. Let's say I wanted to see everyone that I have a phone call scheduled with in the last year. So I want to say in the past 1 year and the future 1 year. So I have 59 events scheduled going back 1 year and forward 1 year. I can go here to look up, linked, and choose contacts to bring up a group of the 19 contacts that I have phone calls or meetings or anything scheduled with in the next year, and that I have past due for the last year as well. So you can use the lookup linked as a query to be able to switch between the different data tables at will. Another, real quick, another commonly used use of the querying is to bring up all of your contact records that don't have information to be able to research that information. So what I mean is, like, a contact's not really going to be that useful to you if they don't have a phone number or an email address. So what you can do is query, right-click on the field that you want to query, and choose query. And I want to say, okay, I want to see everybody who has the work phone number is empty, brings me to 248, but I also want to see everybody whose fax number is empty, and drill down, do the same thing for mobile. So I'm just going to do this for the 4 phone number fields and home, drilling down each time, and also for email is empty, and drill down. So it shows me that I have 213 contacts where I have no way to contact them except their address. So I could then save this as a query and hit save and name it no contact info. So I can easily use this when I have some free time each time to kind of go through the list. And so if I were to add like, let's say I researched one of my contacts, Tom Zager here, and I found out his phone number is 858-555-1212. Well, now when I save this record, next time I do that query, Tom Zager is no longer, I have 2 copies of Tom Zager, but it brought me from 213 to 212. So each time you do this query, your number will go less and less each time you do this. So that, my friends, is how to filter and sort properties in your properties, contacts, and so on in your database.